Charlton Heston and safety rights. It's interesting when we list the rather long and important litany of civil rights. We never seem to include safety. And in our current context, too often if we do refer to safety, particularly in the African American community, or as I prefer, American Black community, it is always with an emphasis on external threats. Now the ubiquitous imagery of lurking white and or white Hispanic, depending on your definitional preference, gunmen hunting down young black men has seized the popular consciousness in the American Black community. Despite certain inconvenient truths, like, depending on which statistics you accept, 93 to 96% of our people are killed by our people. And when I say our people, it's not being racist or exclusionary, merely being factual. Most American blacks are killed by other American blacks. Sadly, many non-black Americans also find themselves killed by American blacks. Does that indict us as a group? No. But it does state that the external focus, saying that a white man with a remote control or some other nefarious type is more responsible for the evil in our midst than we ourselves, is not only erroneous, but, if we must be candid, cowardly. The internal threat is what we're going to address today. And I mentioned Charlton Heston for a reason, because in his life story, we see the critical transition from a civil rights model. He marched with Dr. King. He was at 1963 March on Washington, however one may feel about it. And the threat at that time was external. State-sponsored terror in many southern, and if we're honest, northern states, and a federal government that was, we'll say, less than enthusiastic in its response. Fast forward to when he became president of the NRA, when he made his famous statement with the musket held aloft from the podium, that from my cold dead hands, and how some in the current left misinterpreted that as meaning that now the civil rights icon had become a hater. Safety is a civil right. If you grew up in zip codes like mine that were invaded, mutated, and left desolate by crack, then you understand that safety is not an abstract concept, but a fundamental human right under serious assault. I found it very disheartening that the very persons most impacted by street crime, most devastated by the endless wave of persons I call chocolate Klansmen, are often encouraged to disarm themselves, to play the passive role of hostage, and to look on high for elected officials and appointed spokespersons, to plea bargain with people in our midst who have no more compassion or interest in our lives than the external threat of the 1960s, represented by rogue elements in law enforcement, legislatures, and of course, your happy-go-lucky, Sunday-go-to-meeting vigilantes who made their presence quite well felt in the American South and elsewhere. But in 2013, that's not the case. In 2013, the issue of safety rights in urban centers is not whether we will rally against external threats, but whether we will finally admit, and in this admission organize with the same evangelical zeal to combat an internal threat which has not lessened in the wake of epic reform, but in fact has gotten worse. As I recall, even in my personal life's experience, the very long casualty list, not one of these persons was killed by someone outside of our community. And also, regrettably, None of their murders was occasioned by the types of national rallies and calls to action that we see on the occasion, the very rare occasion, when a non-black civilian or even a law enforcement officer shoots and kills one of us. This is our fault. I've been an anti-crime activist for over 20 years. I have yet to see an inner city besieged by skinheads. I've yet to see a hood under attack by neo-Nazis. I've yet to see what we commonly refer to as, quote, the black community, the low-income segment, which has grown exponentially, by the way, under 2 terms of Obama, under attack by white supremacists. What I have seen are merciless, heartless, and yes, evil assailants under cover of blackness, under color of blackness, wage a type of war of attrition against innocent people that would not be accepted in any other community. And again, only American blacks can face this, and only American blacks can be the vanguard in combating this. When Charlton Heston raised a musket and stated, "From my cold, dead hands," he was issuing a rallying cry for a new civil rights movement, a civil rights movement where safety, regardless of your color, assumes paramount importance. Because when a country is overrun by thugs, one can ill afford to be disorganized or unarmed.